Pittsburgh Steelers president Art Rooney exposes the truth to the media that the Steelers are farther from relevancy than they are to a Super Bowl. So, Art Rooney, he had his closing season press conference yesterday, and he talked to the media, and he was asked questions about the Steelers season. And more specifically, the disappointing end to the season, the losing streak that the Steelers were on, and how they could bounce back from it. But first, before I go over that, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, Art Rooney, he reveals that he was not impressed by the Steelers late towards the end of last season, and that the fans have been getting on him, sending him emails, sending him messages that the team needs to do better, and he realizes that. I'm just going to read one small quote before I get into larger quotes. He says, after losing 5 in a row, it's hard to say that we are closer. So, what does that mean? Well, it's hard to say that they're close to being Super Bowl contenders after the downfall that they had this past season and losing 5 in a row, especially to all playoff teams. So at least he realizes it. So enough with that. Let me get into the bigger quotes, because Art Rooney talked more than just that one specific part. He talked about the season in general and how disappointing it was towards the end of the season. So his opening statement, this was his statement to open up the press conference. Obviously, it was a disappointing end of the season. Losing 5 in a row is not what we expected, especially after getting off to a good start. So we have a lot of work to do to improve on going into next season. So later on in the interview, he was talking about the Steelers fans and how the Steelers fans are pretty mad at him and the team for losing down the stretch of the season and not putting up a good season once again. So he said this. He exposes that his inbox has been pretty full lately, and he has a sense and share the same frustration as the fans, and was very disappointed in the way the season ended. So he understands that. He understands why people are mad, and all he can say is action speaks louder than words, and that we've got to be better. So, end quote. But a year ago, when you look at what Art Rooney said to close the press conference, he basically said the exact same thing a year ago. How the Steelers, he's disappointed in what they did, and they've got to be better. He basically echoed the exact same words. So now it's time for actions. So when you look at Art Rooney, this time he said, I'm still impatient. I'm disappointed with the way we finished. It's hard to get over a 5-game losing streak to end the season. End quote. So he basically echoing the same thing, impatience and everything like that. But we have to see some moves actually be made. If you're saying you're impatient, what does that mean? You have to go out and get some players and fix the patience and make it so you're a winning team. You can't just say you're impatient and not fix this team. That's just my thoughts on this. So looking at what he said, another quote, we just have to keep building a strong roster. We've got to play the cream of the crop. That 3-game stretch, the Christmas tournament, if you will, we played the best teams in the league and obviously could see we're not there. End quote. So that quote is actually really impressive that he would say that. Usually a president of the team and Art Rooney, I don't think he would say that, but this time saying that they're basically not with the top teams. They lost to the top teams and they're nowhere near their level. At least he realizes it. At least he realizes the Steelers, hey, they're not there yet. They're nowhere near there yet. They're losing down the stretch to all playoff teams and the top teams in the NFL. And if you want to be the best and win a Super Bowl, you have to be able to beat the best. And he realizes that the Steelers aren't capable of doing that right now. So that's one step to getting to the right direction. Now it's fixing the roster to be able to keep up and beat these good teams. So it's really good that he pointed that out. But anyway, let's take it back, because enough with the quotes now. Let's just talk about why there's frustration among the fans. Well, the frustration among the fans are the same thing's been done since 2016. The Steelers just haven't made the playoffs and won a playoff game since 2016. So you would think that the Steelers organization, the front office, they would do something about it. They would put this roster together in terms of putting a winning team together that could actually win playoff games. You've had from 2016 to 2024. That's what, 8 years, 8 seasons to do something to switch this team around. No, they haven't done anything to put this team in a winning forefront. They've done the same thing over and over, and it's been repetitive. The same things are said every season. At the end of the season, by Mike Tomlin, by either the GM, whoever's in place, and the president, Rooney. The same thing has been said every single season towards the end. That they're disappointed and that things are needed to change, but what changes? Nothing changes. The same thing is done every single time, and this roster is stuck in irrelevancy. You're talking about some superstars that you have on the team, like TJ Watt. You have Cameron Heyward. You had Minkah Fitzpatrick, who was a superstar. Where he's at now is uncertain. You've also had Big Ben for most of this time. You've had these running backs, top receivers in the league. You had a good offensive line at one point, but the same thing is done over and over, and it's just not fixed. So you would think that putting a good roster together and surrounding this team with a competent coaching staff would be top of the forefront. But no, that's never done. You always have offense coordinators that are now in and out, and defense coordinators that just look like they don't know what they're doing. A bad scheme in general. You have coaching decisions that are questionable in terms of what are you doing? Are you trying to make this team lose? So you have things going on in this team where it's just not understandable and frustrations are had. And that's why the fans are emailing and filling up the president's inbox, like he said, because they're frustrated at what this team is doing. And yes, the president or the coach, whoever, can voice that frustration. But once things are never fixed, then the Steelers fans are going to get impatient. Rooney saying that he's impatient. Well, us fans are impatient at the organization for continuing to lose in the first round for how many years in a row and not winning a playoff game. You would think with the organization as top of level as the Pittsburgh Steelers, someone with a president like Rooney, who's basically multi-billionaire and things like that, that this team would be able to switch things around from a business aspect and put this team in relevancy again. But no, that just hasn't been done. They're stuck in irrelevancy in terms of not being the top of the top teams. Yes, they're in relevancy in terms of making the playoffs and always be right in the mix, but they're never the top of the top teams. So you think that something would change, but it just hasn't. That's why it's impatient. But the fans are also impatient. So you look at the Steelers and what can they fix? Well, I'll go over in a different video, but the first, it starts with putting a team together in terms of a coaching staff that is competent, can actually put a scheme together that just doesn't get ruined by any good team that could beat it. For example, defensive coordinator. I think they need to move on, but they're not going to move on. Obviously, no switches has been made, and that's where it's frustrating because no switches, no changes are being made to this coaching staff, and I believe it started there. If you have a coaching staff that knows what they're doing, it really doesn't matter in terms of having every single superstar on the field. You have enough superstars on the defensive side that you should be a good defense, but the defensive coaching staff, whether that's Mike Tomlin calling the shots or Terrell Austin calling the shots, it just wasn't making sense towards the end of the season. And even the offense coordinator, it's just the same plays over and over, running the same scheme over and over, an old scheme that he has from the past, like 5 years ago. That's not working in today's NFL. So it's just stuff that aren't getting switched that need to be done, and that's why it's just frustrating in general. But hopefully things change, but it looks like as of right now, the same coaches are going to be back, the same schemes are going to be being set, and they're just running it back with the same team. So you're saying you're impatient, but you're just running it back with the same team as this past season and hoping for different results. That's basically what they've been doing for however long now. Running it back and hoping that things change, and that's really a sad thing. Anyway, enough with that. Those were Rooney's quotes, basically saying that the team is nowhere near relevancy right now, losing to the top of the top teams and things like that. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, your thoughts on Rooney's comments, and do you believe the Steelers are stuck in irrelevancy in terms of nowhere near the top of winning the Super Bowl? Do you believe things need to be changed? What would you change from this team? And just what are your thoughts in general on this past season for the Pittsburgh Steelers? And do you think they could be Super Bowl contenders this next year? Let me know your thoughts. And also, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis reports, everything surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers in terms of this offseason. I am now covering it because now the season's over, and I will be covering the offseason, so stay tuned to this channel. Whether it's training camp, highlights with that when it comes closer, or just the free agency and the draft. I'm covering everything this offseason, just like I covered everything during the regular season and the playoffs. So just because the season's done doesn't mean that the news stops. So stay tuned, like, comment, subscribe, and until the next video, I'll see you guys all later. I'm out. Peace.